Hey guys, today I have some Browning high powers and clones to chat about. The Browning high power is my all-time favorite handgun, and in fact this one is my first handgun. And today we have a lot of clones coming on the market since FN stopped making them, so just want to chat about these that I have in front of me. Alright, so what makes the high power so special and loved by so many people? Well, for me, it's the ergonomics, the feel of it in your hand. There's something about a metal-framed, hammer-fired gun that just feels good, and the feel of it in your hand is really hard to match. It performs very well. I don't think I've ever had a malfunction with this guy that wasn't induced by the shooter. Like I had a friend of mine shooting for the first time who limp-wristed a little bit, but that was it. Now, of course, the Browning models were made for many years, decades, used by militaries across the world and police forces, but they're not made anymore. So if you want to get a high power, you have to pick up one of these used, or you have to go to the clone market. Now, if you're truly a high power aficionado, you have to get the real thing. Go get a Browning. You won't regret it. But if you want to pick up a clone, a newly manufactured one, which one should you go with? There's Springfields, there's Girsans, Inglis, which is a different Turkish manufacturer. It's not a Girsan. Century Arms is importing some, also by a Turkish manufacturer, I think. Anyway, you have some choices. So in the clone market, I really think Girsan is the leader today. And I guess real quick, I should also mention that Browning has a new high power. They call it HIGH power, like the spelling on this guy. But it is not a high power. It, aside from a resemblance to the classic high power, there's nothing alike about it. It's got 0 parts interchangeability. Not even the magazine will work. They really missed the chance to modernize it too, because the new Browning or FN high power, it has no rail, it has no optics cut, and the gun itself, it weighs about 40 ounces, which that's about the same as a steel frame 1911. I really don't see a place in the market for it. It's also very expensive. If you have one, maybe you have one, you love it, please explain that to me in the comments. I'd really like to know why. Why I think Girsan's making great high power clones is, for one, you can get the just plain old P35 model. It's cheap. It's like $400, and it closely replicates the Browning in the look and the feel and the parts interchangeability. As far as I know, all the parts interchange. They even duplicated the magazine safety, which you probably ought to get rid of, to be honest. But if you want a more modernized type of high power, they have options there too. I see these guys as like, in the early 2000s, for example, you know, the 1911 market came out with factory, like, loaded models with a lot of modifications that people were doing to their 1911s, where you'd have like the commander-style hammer, the extended beaver tail, maybe different triggers, and some of them you could get a rail if you wanted a rail. You know, different cut sights, not just the little military sights. So Girsan kind of brought that modernization to the high power. I think this is what Browning should have done. And these two Girsan models, let's talk about them a little bit. This is the MCP35 Optic model, long name. This one is now discontinued. So you can probably still find some in stock, but if you do want this one, you better look for it soon. Now, what all that stuff means, Girsan calls the Ops models are the ones with the rail. And the Optic, this one came with the Optic cut, and it actually came with a little crappy Optic, which didn't really do anything except increase the price, really. So I changed that out. It's nice to have that. It's a Shield RMS cut, and I filed down the lugs to take the Hollow Sun K. So this gun has a lot to offer if you want like a modernized high power, I think. But then, after this one came out, I saw this one, which they call the PI model. And more specifically, it's the MC P35 lightweight model. The lightweight match model is what this one is. Match means it doesn't have the rail. If you get the lightweight ops model, it would have the rail. So what's cool about this one is it has an aluminum frame. The aluminum frame takes off about 8 ounces of weight. So the Browning high power weighs 32.4 ounces. The ops model here weighs 35.5 ounces. And this one weighs just 25.5 ounces. That's as configured with the empty magazine and includes the Optic here. So when you come in at just 25.5 ounces, that puts this guy in the same weight class as like a Glock 19, typical polymer framed guns. And that's pretty cool. Now it's also the shortened slide. It's about an inch shorter, which kind of duplicates, I think it was FM, the Argentine manufacturer, made some high powers with this, they called it the detective model slide, I think. So this makes it kind of a compact carry option if you're interested in that. Now, I think it's kind of important to note that FN actually did make some aluminum framed high powers, and this aluminum frame internally, it duplicates the FN design. I'll take this apart and show you a little bit. Now this one does have the extended beaver tail. That's different. The little toe here. Maybe you like those ergonomic features. I like them. But internally they duplicated the FN design, so that's pretty cool. Now, for me, I decided on a high power. I really don't need a rail. I don't think I'm going to put a light on this thing. Most pistols I use don't have lights on them, and if you did put a light on this, it'd be really hard to find a holster. You'd probably be best off using a 1911 light-bearing holster, because high powers can usually fit in 1911 holsters with just a little bit of extra room. You're not going to find a high-power light-bearing holster anyway, because there's so few of these things. Anyway, what I was really interested in was the lightweight frame, and ideally I would have the full-size, full-length slide on it, because I just like it better aesthetically, and shortening the slide on a high power doesn't really do too much for me. Your holsters are probably going to be the same length anyway, the longer length. So what I thought I would do was try out this upper on this frame, and it doesn't quite work. I will show you why. By the way, the magazines and the Girsans don't quite want to drop free. The reason that I found is, I'm not sure if you can see that, but the Sear spring, which is right here at the back of the magazine well, it kind of protrudes into the magazine well just a little bit and grips onto the magazine. So I have some FN Sear springs that I'm going to swap out and see if that fixes the problem. But anyway, let's get these guys apart. See, I've got to grip this. Got to pull the magazine out. And in case you're curious, the Browning, it falls right out. Now the magazine safety is removed from this guy. Okay, so if you look at the geometry of these guys, the full-size Girsan barrel and recoil system are the same as the Browning, especially the shape here and here. The PI lightweight model changes it up. Now, you've got this kind of shortened recoil spring guide rod, and this lug right here is kind of rounded. Now, on the ones that FN made, the barrels for their aluminum frames, they also had this rounded shape. So that's pretty cool that Girsan did that to follow the Browning design. Now, the reason for that different shape is You've got this steel, I guess, locking block inside the aluminum frame that interfaces with the barrel right there. Now, mechanically speaking, the standard barrel will work on this aluminum frame, but FN saw fit to change the barrel design, so it's probably better to run this kind of barrel. If you want to get one of those on like a full-size size, there are a few companies making them, like Barstow. You'll have to get it custom made, I think, but it can be done. But actually, the issue with putting this slide on this frame, it's not the barrel. However, let me show you the issue real quick. Let's put that on. Now, in order to disassemble or reassemble, you got to get that safety notch in there. It doesn't quite go back all the way. Something's kind of interfering with it, and what I think it is it's probably the recoil guide rod, because when I remove it, you see it goes back all the way. Now, you can't quite just take out the PI guide rod and replace directly with the longer slide, because, well, one thing is the PI length slide uses this flat recoil spring, which won't fit in the standard dust cover. So you could say, okay, well, you just take my coil recoil spring off. Well, yeah, you could put that on here, but the issue then becomes this guide rod is longer than this one, so it won't operate properly. In the PI model, it will come out of the front of the frame. But of course, there's no hole in the standard Browning design. You'd have to do a little bit of trickeration. If you look at the frames, I think down here, can you see that? I think there's a little bit less clearance in there in the PI frame, the aluminum frame, than the steel frame. So it might be possible to work something out. You could go crazy with a Dremel or something, but I don't know if I want to do that. So I might just love these guys as they are, Now, I will say, too, the shooting experience for these guys, I have some video of the standard high power and the larger ops model. Maybe I'll roll that in, but this one shoots the best for me. And that's probably because I'm very used to it. I've shot it a lot, so it's just an experience level. This also has lower felt recoil to me than the Girsan models. I think that's mostly due to these springs being stronger. The recoil spring is maybe like 1 pound stronger, but the hammer spring's a lot stronger. The FN spec is 32 pounds, which is probably enough to detonate any primer on the planet. FN's original spec was actually 26 pounds. Interestingly, I found that the Girsan models feel almost exactly the same in the shooting experience. I thought that the lightweight model would maybe be snappier, more recoil. It's considerably lighter, it's 10 ounces lighter, so it's about 1/3 lighter, but they really feel the same shooting them. That may be because of the flat recoil spring here. That's a newer design you see in a lot of compact pistols, like the kind of pistol you would typically carry. But anyway, these are great options if you want to get a high power today. They're really well made. The machining's really nice. They just work great. Yeah, Browning's still the king, but harder to find, more expensive. You know, you're going to pay probably 2 to 3 times the price for this as you would for a Girsan. So yeah, if you haven't shot a high power, definitely, you know, if you're a collector, you gotta have a high power. The PI models, by the way, they are optics ready. You get the rear sight that's rear iron sight on a plate that's removable. And under there, you've got the Shield RMSC pattern. Hopefully we get some new shooters shooting high powers where they really didn't have the option before. You know, there's no shame in getting a clone if you don't want to spend $1,000 plus on the original. But if you can get an original, of course, I highly recommend it. By the way, I did go and change the Sear spring out to an FN made part, and the magazine's drop free now. However, it did increase the trigger pull weight from about 4 pounds to 6, and that's about in line with the actual Browning triggers. So that's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching.